This episode is brought to you by Kia's first 3-row all-electric SUV, the Kia EV9, with available all-wheel drive and seating for up to 7 adults, with a 0 to 60 speed that thrills you 1 minute and available reclining lounge seats that unwind you the next. Visit kia.com/EV9 to learn more. Ask your Kia dealer for availability. No system, no matter how advanced, can compensate for all driver error and or driving conditions. Always drive safely.
Between the kids being home and hosting, everything in our house gets used up in summer. With Instacart, I can save money by stocking up on all my favorite summer brands. I save time by getting everything delivered in as fast as an hour. And I save myself a sink full of dirty dishes by stocking up on paper plates for the annual summer cookout. Save more on summer essentials? Spend more time enjoying summer. Add summer to cart. Download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
LinkedIn presents.
Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page, and please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI podcast episode, I talk with James Brogan about building team experience in your organization. James Brogan, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
John, thanks a million for the opportunity to chat to you today.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from sunny New York. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about building team experience in your organization. As we get started, I wanted to share James's brief bio with everybody. James Brogan is CEO and co-founder of Pep Talk. Pep Talk is a team experience platform that enables teams to engage and perform at their best. So the topic for today is really a great fit for everything you're trying to do there at Pep Talk. And I'm thrilled to learn more about your organization and what you do and the tools and resources that you provide organizations to help them improve their team experiences. Before we dive on into the conversation, is there anything else you would like to highlight about your own background or personal context before we just dive on in?
Yeah, no, listen, as I say, Jonathan, really, really excited about talking about Pep Talk, about the team experience platform we built. And I guess we can touch on my own experiences as well in terms of being part of high performing cultures in a sporting context, and I suppose the inspiration that we've taken from sport and we're bringing now into our software, into the business. It's something I'm really passionate about, and there's certain principles that we've, I suppose, taken from that world that we've brought into Pep Talk, and I think it's really, really relevant for every organization out there right now, you know, as we navigate the new world of work. So yeah, delighted to kind of get stuck in.
All right. Well, as we get going, why don't you start by just providing a little bit more of an overview? I gave it the littlest, tiniest of snippets, but tell us more about what Pep Talk does and what you mean by team experience and why that's important to pay attention to.
Yeah, no, totally. And I suppose I think the best way of looking at it is one of the biggest challenges organizations are facing right now, John, and I think it's across the board, is connecting people to the culture of the organization, making them feel part of the organization. Whether you're hybrid, whether you've just come out of the pandemic and the whole the dynamic between the employer and the employee, and maybe my value set and the employer's value set are sort of changing. So there's a number of different dynamics at play that are ultimately challenging organizations in terms of what is the experience like for the individual, and in particular, what is the experience like within the team and within Pep Talk. I guess what we've quickly realized, and we've been around for a number of years, and we've been iterating and evolving our product. Really, what matters most to people is that sense of connection and emotional proximity. And emotional proximity, when I talk about that, that's really just this idea of feeling seen. So whether I'm coming to, I'm in an office, whether I'm virtual, the idea that my manager in the organization cares about me and cares about my experience at work. So I think what team experience is about, it's about acknowledging that really what matters to me in terms of my working experience is hugely impacted by the team that I work with, because that's that sense of belonging and trust and camaraderie, but also then the important role that a manager plays within that. And really what the Pep Talk product is about, it's about creating and enabling positive habits, rituals, and behaviors to take place within that team on a monthly basis, to really proactively encourage the organization to acknowledge the importance of this, not just for because it's a good thing to do, because it's essential for high performance. And really, if you think about it, trusting your colleagues and knowing your colleagues on a human level, that's the fuel that drives performance. And you only need to look at sport in particular to see the importance that they place on that sense of connection and camaraderie that happens within a dressing room or a changing room. And to close out on that kind of sporting piece, there's probably three key principles that I think are really important right now that we've taken from sport and brought into the Pep Talk offering. The first is that great teams don't happen by accident. John, you've probably been part of some teams in your own career, and there's always, firstly, you tend to see people, they smile when you mention it, because it's a feeling. It's a feeling of, yeah, that was a good time in my career. But there tended to be things that team did that made it a great team. It didn't just sort of happen. And I think that's the first point. So if you acknowledge that great teams don't happen by accident, it's the onus is on the business and the manager to think about what are we doing every week, every month to proactively encourage positive behaviors to happen. And I think the second piece is then around this idea of, we need to acknowledge that individual performance is great, but 2 + 2 equal, the team, this idea of, we talk a lot about team experience and that idea of team ethic. If we can all contribute a little bit more for our colleagues, that little bit, that 1%, that idea of committing more because I like the person beside me and I'm happy to commit a little bit more to that project or to that goal. That's very, very powerful and much more powerful than any individual contributor can make. And I think that's the last piece is around, a team is only as strong as its weakest link. That a team, we need to acknowledge that we're all different. We all have different personalities. So how do we begin to understand each other? And then by understanding each other, then we begin to spot maybe challenges people are having with workload or burn or tensions that there may be within the team itself that we just need to have a conversation about. So only when the team can kind of be united ultimately and working towards that common goal, I think that's when the magic happens. And that's the area we play in, Tom or John, and that's the really exciting kind of, I think the next generation of software tools in our space are as much about creating opportunities for connection and trust and camaraderie to be built, in addition to anything we might do from a productivity perspective.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. There's a lot there that you just shared that I think
there's a lot to unpack.
And dig into, but maybe I'll frame it this way. There's a lot of talk, a lot of jargon around employee experience. People talk about employee experience all the time. I hear less dialogue specifically around team experience. Now, some of this could relate back to the sports type of teams. I have been in sports teams. I've also, I perform. am a musician. I've been parts of
Oh,
ensembles
great. Yeah,
and
yeah.
groups that perform. And I see many of those same attributes. I've also been part of high performing teams in the workplace, where we're just working on really cool stuff and there's a lot of energy around it. And, I think people have seen examples of these in different types of team experiences. Maybe you could articulate a little bit more for us from your perspective and from the pep talk perspective. What's that difference between and perhaps the relationship between employee experience and team experience?
Yeah, no, and it's a great question. I think, in real simple terms, John, like the employee experience for us has primarily been focused on the individual. So that individual's experience of work, and it's been very focused on the individual and the organization. What can the organization do for me, and what can I do for the organization? And it's been and that relationship and that um, dynamic has sort of been how over the last number of years, certainly pre-COVID, is how we've operated. And I think what we've seen in the last number of years is in a shift in as I touch on this idea of, okay, the experience I have at work, it needs to be about more than the individual. I think what we've seen is the emergence of a number of trends that are now organizations acknowledging that belonging is the number one driver of employee engagement right now. So how do you create belonging? You can't create belonging in isolation. You need to create belonging by opening yourself up to the broader organization, and the most natural place for us for that is within the team. And how well do we sort of know our team? How well do we actually understand what motivates them, what drives them? So I think um, acknowledging that we're all probably a little bit different post the pandemic, and we maybe all want different things. It only drives that need to acknowledge that we need to start thinking about the organization and the team and developing conversations and habits that enable me to have a really positive experience, but it's going to be a shared experience. And I think that's really what we missed in the pandemic. What we now yearn for and desire is this sense of belonging, and to have shared experiences at work, and to get to know each other. Even if I'm not necessarily going to be in the office every day, that's okay. We're not necessarily saying that we can have experiences, and this idea of feeling, I can feel seen. The idea of me coming to the office and just being seen is great, but what about me feeling seen? What about people asking me questions about how I am feeling today and what could be better about that? So I think acknowledging that we don't want to live, we don't ultimately, we want to live, we want to be part of a team. And I think the organization acknowledging the power of a team. And the last piece is the manager, the leader, the person that really is, there's some crazy stats out there, John, that, the connection I have to the culture of the organization, 2/3 of that is made up of my experiences with my manager. So that's enormous. And the manager has the same impact in terms of my sense of happiness as my partner or spouse. So when you think about the importance of a manager has to my feelings of positivity in the work environment, we ultimately believe that a very important subset of the team is the manager or the leader, and he or she is an individual that is underserved in the current work environment and needs more support, because they're being asked to manage differently, they're being asked to lead differently. And so I think there's a number of nuances to this team experience, but certainly it's a trend we've seen increasingly get, I suppose, interest and spark really good conversations amongst organizations. Because you're right, the employee experience thing has been around for a while. I get it, but what's different and what's new? And I think team experience is an interesting dynamic and an interesting conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're both important, right? And you highlighted, that when you have a really great team experience, that tends to enhance the employee experience, doesn't it?
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah.
the
But it's
point
about
is,
looking at that, isn't it? It's about acknowledging that maybe
yes,
that wasn't. We need to almost to be intentionally thinking not only about the
Yes.
employee experience, but what's the team experience like? And that just creates, as I say, an onus on the leader or the manager to do a little bit more. It presents the need to create opportunities for conversations to happen among that team and to kind of intentionally, okay, how are we going to talk about this as a team? And I think
Yeah.
that's the difference. I think it's just an acknowledgement that, I think we've just maybe been, I think it's a gap that organizations have right now in terms of how they look at employee experience, because the team is key. And as you say, we all have experiences of working within teams, and there's just opportunities there to create belonging. There's opportunities there to create a real sense of camaraderie and ultimately drive the type of performance that organizations are looking for, in particular for lots of organizations that are probably trying to do a little bit more, maybe with a little bit less, in the current environment. So it's more important than ever.
And you started to talk about it a little bit, but maybe we can drill down a little bit more and talk about whose responsibility it is to create this team experience. Now, certainly a team leader, a coach in a sports setting, or a conductor in a musical setting, a team leader in a business setting, a manager, a leader, they have a huge responsibility in creating that kind of inclusive culture of belonging and having a really great team dynamic. But let's talk a little bit more about that. And what are some of the specific things that leaders and managers need to be doing? And then what's like my role as an individual member of the team? What's my role and responsibility in trying to really enhance that team experience?
Yeah, no, I think, yes, and I know we've probably touched on it a little bit, but for in our experience, as I say, there's lots of interesting data points around, the leader, the manager, his importance, or their importance for developing, his or her, the development of the actions and that positivity and proactivity around that. So I think for a manager, they need to probably start with acknowledging how we're going to start checking in with our team. And I think this is probably a great kind of conversation around how the Pep Talk product enables managers in particular and the team to start having a better conversation. So within our product, John, the main focus is around starting every month by checking in. So again, helping people feel seen, helping people, how are we feeling about the month ahead? Are we energized? Are we anxious? Are we a bit in the middle? And then if there's areas that we need to get better on, what are they? And it could be workload, it could be connection, teamwork, purpose, and just having that data, that's the start for a really interesting conversation. And you're right, the leader is there to kind of set that tone. But the beauty of what we're saying is that's not a conversation for the manager to have in isolation. That's a conversation for the team to have, to say, okay, here's some interesting insights about how we're feeling as a team. So it's really about the team. This is the individual is part of that. But for Pep Talk, it's about looking at the trends and the emerging areas of focus amongst the team. If there was one thing that this team could get better at for the next 4 weeks, what would it be? And then how does Pep Talk begin? So our software then begins to understand the team and begins to suggest some interventions and some areas for that team to focus on. So really, it's this idea of a collective checking in to kind of see how we're feeling. And then, okay, what are we going to do about it? And I think that's where the Pep Talk solution is quite different to a survey tool, which tends to give lots of data, but maybe not a lot of, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? And it tends not to tool up managers who are so important in the actual cultural change that we ultimately may need to do here. So I think the beauty of what we're trying to do here, it's manager enabled, but really team ownership is important here. So each member of that team can ultimately lead out on contributing towards solving the problem. And I think that's really, you want to build trust, you want to create camaraderie. That's the way, the simple act of participation and contribution, almost at that point, Pep Talk has enabled that piece to, then we're really just enabling something to happen. And every organization, obviously their data sets are going to be different, their conversations are going to be different, and the action off the back is going to be different, but you're just enabling information to come to the surface to exactly that, to create the ownership on the collective ownership of trying to solve these issues and acknowledge the importance of them to getting where we're trying to get to, because a lot of organizations will just run from month to month without ever really acknowledging what might be happening on the ground. And I think that's the beauty of this. It's quite on, it's like you develop this rhythm. So you have this monthly rhythm of checking in and and evolving and taking action. And each month you begin to look at different areas. And that's really culture in action. That's what it is. It's just doing positive things every month to support the type of culture we're trying to build. So that really is team experience in action for me, John. It can be very simple, yet very, very powerful.
Yeah, I love it. And that shared responsibility piece, everyone is a contributor to that team experience. And again, anyone who's been part of a really great team, this. Every single person plays a really integral role in making sure that experience stays positive. Though certainly the coach, the conductor, the team lead, the manager, the leader, they certainly create the context, they create the environment, and they also have a little bit of position power to hold people accountable. Hopefully within the team they're holding each other mutually accountable as well. But the more you share that responsibility, I think the better the more high performing teams you'll experience, and ultimately you'll just have a better experience. You'll enjoy each other. So not just perform well, but like actually enjoy being with each other. You'll develop meaningful relationships with each other. You'll do cool stuff together. And all of that is really what we want to achieve.
Yeah, and we've got great examples of companies, and I just think one more recently that just they'd been working. There was a shift to a night shift, sort of working differently. Let's just say their work environment had changed, and there was a concern around just levels of morale, and the concern that really this change wasn't quite landing the way they hoped it would. And the beauty of what we were able to do was quickly, not wait for the annual survey. It was like we quickly got under the hood of that, and within weeks we'd understood, burnout was becoming an issue. It was surfacing in our check-in analysis over a 3-month period, and we were quickly then able to kind of tool up the managers and the leaders to get in and have positive conversations with that, and the issue began to subside. So it's only a small example, but it's this idea of as you say there, that really is what will inhibit your ability to change your organization or inhibit the sales quota number that you're looking to target at the end of the month. It may be about getting your salespeople better at selling, but it's also about acknowledging that these are human beings, and we need to think about what other things may be inhibiting them from being the best version of themselves. And I think that's really that idea of holistic performance is about that. It's about the team. It's about acknowledging and, as you say, collectively support each other on the journey towards whatever the goal is at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. That's a really exciting area for us. So I think that represents the future, how organizations are going to build teams and get performance. We can't keep hammering people over the head, say work harder. It's about working smarter and acknowledging what drives performance. It's the stuff we're talking about: trust, camaraderie, connection.
Yeah.
I could go on for ages.
This is such a fun topic. James, this has really been a pleasure. I know at the time I need to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap things up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, your team, where they can find out more about Pep Talk, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
Yeah, great. So, John, I suppose, as I say, my name is James Brogan. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the co-founder and CEO. www.peptalk.com for any more details on our company. We'd love to kind of hopefully get some people interested in, we'll run product demos. We'll get you to sign up to some of our webinars that are coming up over the next number of weeks and months. I promise our webinars are engaging. They're interesting. We're really getting into depth on this product. And this opportunity. And listen, in summary, I think what we are trying to do in the world of work is really different. And I think the need for organizations to think differently about how they engage, energize, and ultimately define performance for the new world of work is shifting. And we're representative of the type of organization, type of organizations we are working with across but the deskless environment in terms of construction, engineering, pharma, all the way across into tech as well. So this is happening. This shift is happening, and we'd love to talk to some companies that are interested in learning more. So again, congratulations on the podcast. It's great to have an opportunity to be here. And yeah, thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, James. It has truly been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected, find out more about what James and his team can do for you at Pep Talk. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Enjoy ad-free listening by going to the Patreon page. And please consider contributing even at the producer or sponsorship level. And please leave a review. Thank you for your support. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.